Vi znate kako smo reagovali kada se pojavio određeni način plaćanja u prevozu, kad se pojavio BusPlus. Svi su se narogušili i mislili da i dalje mogu da se voze po nekim svojim kriterijima. Kriterijumi su bili ti da se obračunavaju uglavnom sa onima koji kontrolišu, da dođe i do nekih konflikata i tako dalje. Imali smo utisak kao da je to neki namet, kao da se to, kao neka nepravda. Međutim, ja sam otišla u London da vidim kako se voze oni koji isto imaju tu vrstu plaćanja i da vidimo kako postupaju, kako planiraju. Uvek je dobro čuti iskustvo i primeniti ga ovde.
Evo me ovde u Londonu. Kada hoćete da uđete u autobus, onda upotrebite ovu karticu. Ona se ovde zove Oyster.
The Oyster card's been running for 10 years, and when we launched the Oyster card, our principle was to test, and test again, and prepare the customers and prepare Londoners to make sure that this launch happened successfully. The whole launch of Oyster took place in small steps over a 3-year period. And that's the only way to do it, because it's a new technology and you want people to trust the technology from day one. In London, you are required to touch your Oyster card when you enter the bus system. And if you don't touch your Oyster card, the driver can refuse you entry into the bus. If you are able to get into the bus without the driver noticing you, then every now and then our revenue inspectors get on board the bus. And if you're found without a ticket or without having touched your Oyster card in, you can get a penalty fare. The penalty fare in London is £80, which is a very steep amount. But if you're a habitual offender, and so you've done that many times in the past, you can be prosecuted. And we do prosecute people and they end up going to jail.
But you can enter without doing that.
Well, you can. If in a big crowd, it is possible that you can slip in. But the drivers are very conscious and they make sure that customers are touching in on the way in. When people get into the bus without paying and they get inspected by an inspector, it's not just the customer who gets a fine, and the fine is very steep at £80. The driver also gets a penalty. And so the driver has a very strong incentive to make sure that customers are touching in on the way in.
What are the rights of an inspector if he comes to the bus and realizes that the passenger does not have a ticket?
Well, the inspector has to make a decision as to whether this is just a mistake that the customer's made, in which case he might be given a fare, or something where the person has been deliberately trying to dodge paying a fare, in which case it's a penalty fare, or whether he's been doing it again and again, in which case it's a prosecution, and that judgment is made by the inspector. A fare on the bus is £1.40. A penalty fare is £80, and in the event of prosecution, the person could go to jail for up to 3 years. Prosecution usually happens within about 2 months.
Did it ever happen that the passenger attacks?
Well, when our inspectors get on the bus for inspection, they're usually also assisted by police. So inspectors never go on the bus by alone. They usually go in groups of 2 or 3, so that if there is an attack, they're able to take care of it. And in cases where they expect that there to be trouble, they're also assisted by the police.
What you do for passengers? Are you giving them certain facilities?
We are a model for other countries, and the transport service in London is very, very good. In the last 10 years, we have seen a huge improvement in our bus service. We had buses from the 1950s that were on the road just 10 years ago. They have all been replaced by modern buses, and we have one of the most modern fleets of buses anywhere in the world. All of our buses are accessible, which means that people with a wheelchair can get on board the bus. There is a lot of information available about not just the bus timetables, but also real-time information about where the buses are. This is one of the things that causes a lot of frustration to people when they're waiting at a bus stop and they don't know where our bus is. So, we have tried to improve our bus service hugely, and the result of that is a huge increase in the number of people using the bus service in London.
Are people skipping it?
It's not a huge amount. I don't think it's gone up too much recently. So I don't see any reason to skip it. It's a public service, you have to pay for it.
Do you have an Oyster card?
Yes, I do.
You never skip?
No temptation. Won't be fair.
I have a travel. I'm retired, so I have a freedom bus.
Are you happy with the support of government? Do they put enough money in London transport?
In every country and in every city, the government has to make a choice about how much support it provides to the transport system. We get a level of support. It's much smaller than the level of support in other cities like Paris. That's one of the reasons why we have to make our fares a bit higher than they are in other cities. We have a 10-year business plan within Transport for London, and this is our forward plan for investment. In the next week, we're launching a pilot of a new ticketing system in London that will make it even easier than the Oyster card system for people to travel in London. From next week onwards, a small group of customers will be able to travel in London using just their credit or debit card from their bank.
A ono što saznajemo u Londonu će moći da se vrši plaćanje preko mobilnih telefona. Eto, i to je jedna novina.